The ring that changed everything. Before you read another word, imagine standing in a silent room where one small object carries the weight of countless memories. Imagine watching a promise that once seemed unbreakable being placed gently on a table and returned without anger, without tears, but with a finality that leaves everyone speechless. What would you do if you were there to witness that moment? Stay with us until the end, because this story unfolds with twists that no one saw coming and emotions so powerful they transformed a simple apology into an unforgettable turning point. The afternoon began like any other, calm and ordinary on the surface. Yet beneath that calm atmosphere, tension lingered in the air. Rumors had already spread that a carefully planned meeting was about to take place. The purpose was simple. One person wanted forgiveness. The other wanted closure. Tian Xiwei arrived first. She stepped into the private room with quiet confidence. There was no dramatic entrance, no crowd surrounding her, no attempt to draw attention. Yet the moment she appeared, the atmosphere shifted. Everyone present could sense that something significant was about to happen. A few minutes later, Zhang Linghe entered. The room instantly felt smaller. His expression revealed determination, mixed with nervousness. It was the look of someone who had rehearsed countless words, but still feared they might not be enough. In his hand was a carefully wrapped box. No one knew exactly what was inside, but speculation spread immediately. The two sat across from each other. For several long moments, neither spoke. Outside the large windows, the city continued moving as if nothing extraordinary was happening. Cars passed by. People hurried along sidewalks. Life moved forward. Inside the room, however, time seemed frozen. Finally, Zhang Linghe broke the silence. He spoke calmly at first. He acknowledged misunderstandings. He reflected on mistakes. He described moments he wished he could change. Every sentence appeared carefully chosen. Those listening nearby noticed something unusual. This was not a performance. This was not an attempt to impress anyone. It sounded genuine. As he continued speaking, his voice occasionally faltered. The confidence he usually displayed seemed replaced by vulnerability. Tian Xiwei listened quietly. She never interrupted. She never looked away. She simply listened. That silence became one of the most powerful parts of the entire encounter. When Zhang Linghe finally finished speaking, he slowly pushed the wrapped box across the table. The room grew even quieter. Tian Xiwei stared at it for several seconds. Then she opened it. Inside was an expensive promise ring. Its polished surface reflected the afternoon light streaming through the window. The ring looked elegant and timeless. It was the kind of gift designed to symbolize commitment, trust, and hope for the future. Several observers later described the moment as unforgettable, not because of the ring itself, but because of what happened next. Tian Xiwei carefully lifted the ring from the box. For a brief second, everyone wondered if this would become the beginning of reconciliation. Instead, she gently placed it back into its case. The gesture was graceful, respectful, final. A visible shift crossed Zhang Linghe's face. Not anger, not frustration, disappointment. The kind that arrives when hope slowly realizes reality has chosen a different path. Tian Xiwei then spoke. Her voice was calm. Her words were measured. She explained that apologies can be sincere and still arrive too late. She acknowledged the courage required to face difficult conversations. She appreciated the effort behind the gesture. But appreciation was not the same as acceptance. The distinction landed with remarkable force. Everyone present understood immediately. This was not a rejection fueled by resentment. This was a decision built on clarity. The conversation that followed lasted much longer than anyone expected. Old memories surfaced. Moments of happiness were recalled. Misunderstandings were examined. Questions were answered. For the first time in a very long time, both sides appeared completely honest. As the discussion continued, emotions rose and fell like waves. At one point, laughter unexpectedly filled the room after a story from the past was mentioned. Moments later, silence returned. The contrast made everything feel even more real. Hours seemed to pass in what felt like minutes. Outside, daylight slowly began fading. The city lights gradually awakened across the skyline. Inside the room, the atmosphere transformed from tension to reflection. What surprised many observers was Tian Xiwei's composure. She never appeared cold. She never appeared cruel. Instead, she displayed something far more difficult: resolve. There is a unique strength in knowing exactly what decision must be made, even when making that decision is painful. That strength became increasingly evident as the evening progressed. Meanwhile, Zhang Linghe continued listening. The realization that some chapters cannot be rewritten slowly became visible in his expression. Still, he remained respectful. Still, he listened. Still, he stayed. That mutual respect ultimately became one of the most memorable aspects of the encounter. When the conversation finally neared its conclusion, Tian Xiwei picked up the ring case once more. Everyone instinctively watched. She held it for several seconds. The room became completely silent. Then she carefully extended it across the table, back toward Zhang Linghe. The gesture required no explanation. The message was clear. Some promises belong to the future. Others belong to the past. This one belonged to the past. The moment felt almost cinematic, yet its power came from simplicity. No dramatic argument occurred. No raised voices shattered the silence. No grand declarations changed the outcome. Only two people confronting reality with honesty. As the meeting ended, both stood. For a brief moment they faced each other. Neither appeared victorious. Neither appeared defeated. Instead, they looked like two individuals who had finally reached an understanding. The difference was profound. Understanding does not always create reconciliation. Sometimes it creates acceptance. And acceptance can be just as meaningful. When Tian Xiwei walked toward the exit, observers noticed something striking. She seemed lighter. Not happier necessarily, but lighter, as though a weight she had carried for a long time had finally been set down. Meanwhile, Zhang Linghe remained seated for a few moments longer. The ring case rested quietly before him. Its significance had changed. What once represented possibility now represented reflection. Eventually he stood and left as well. The evening air greeted him outside. The city continued glowing around him. Life moved forward, just as it always does. Yet the story did not end there. News of the encounter spread rapidly. Discussions erupted everywhere. Some people admired Tian Xiwei's decision. Others sympathized with Zhang Linghe. Many debated whether second chances should always be given. The conversations continued for days. Perhaps that was because the story touched on something universal. Everyone has experienced a moment when they wished they could undo a mistake. Everyone has hoped for forgiveness. Everyone has faced decisions between holding on and letting go. That is why the image of the returned promise ring resonated so deeply. It represented more than a relationship. It represented a crossroads. A choice between nostalgia and reality. A choice between revisiting yesterday and embracing tomorrow. In the weeks that followed, both individuals appeared focused on their own journeys. Neither publicly revisited the meeting. Neither attempted to reshape its meaning. The silence itself became meaningful. Some stories do not require endless explanations. Some moments speak for themselves. And this was one of them. Years from now, people may forget the details surrounding that afternoon. They may forget the location. They may forget the exact words exchanged. But one image will remain. A promise ring resting quietly inside its box. A respectful apology offered with sincerity. A graceful refusal delivered with dignity. And two people choosing honesty over illusion. In a world filled with dramatic confrontations and endless noise, perhaps that was the most surprising twist of all. Not the apology. Not the ring. Not even the rejection. But the maturity displayed by both sides when faced with a difficult truth. Because sometimes the most unforgettable endings are not the loudest. Sometimes they are the quiet moments when hearts accept what minds have already understood. And sometimes a returned ring is not a symbol of failure. It is a symbol of courage. The courage to let go. The courage to move forward. And the courage to embrace whatever future awaits beyond the final goodbye. As the days passed, the story refused to fade from public attention. What many assumed would be a brief and private moment continued to spark conversations everywhere. Yet behind the discussions and speculation, something far more interesting was unfolding. Tian Xiwei immersed herself in work. Those who saw her during the following weeks noticed a subtle change. She appeared more focused, more determined, and strangely at peace. It was not the expression of someone celebrating a difficult decision. Instead, it was the look of someone who had finally stopped fighting an internal battle. Every project she stepped into seemed to benefit from her renewed energy. Colleagues described her as calm and professional, but there was also a new confidence in the way she carried herself. She no longer appeared distracted by questions from the past. Meanwhile, Zhang Linghe found himself reflecting on the encounter far more often than he expected. The image of the returned ring remained vivid in his mind. Not because of its value, not because of the disappointment he felt, but because of the sincerity behind Tian Xiwei's decision. For the first time, he began to understand that genuine apologies are not measured by whether they are accepted. Sometimes the act of apologizing is important because it allows a person to confront their own mistakes honestly. One evening, while attending a private industry gathering, Zhang Linghe unexpectedly heard someone mention Tian Xiwei's name during a casual conversation. The room was filled with laughter and music, yet for a brief moment, everything seemed distant. He remembered the quiet room, the fading sunlight, the promise ring resting between them, and the words she had spoken with such certainty. Some chapters cannot be reopened simply because one person wishes they could continue. That realization settled deeper than ever before. Across the city, Tian Xiwei stood alone on a balcony overlooking a sea of lights. The evening breeze moved gently around her as she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She did not regret returning the ring. She did not regret listening to the apology. And she certainly did not regret choosing herself. As she gazed toward the horizon, she understood something that had taken a long time to learn. Moving forward does not mean forgetting. It means carrying the lessons with you while refusing to remain trapped by them. And somewhere beneath the glowing city lights, two people who once shared the same dream were finally beginning to walk separate paths toward entirely different futures.